I planted the cucumbers and squash just 3 weeks ago, and they're ready for the next stage. I prepared some fungicide water that I use as a preventative. I'm not seeing any problems right now, but I don't want there to be problems. So I've mixed 2 teaspoons of fungicide into 2 gallons of water. I also have mixed some weed water into 2 gallons of water, and I'm using that as a fertilizer. That's kind of an experiment. I've never done it before, but I'm really hoping it works. Weed water is just weeds that you've been soaking in water for several months. It's supposed to be a good fertilizer. So come on in closer. I want to show you what we've got here.
All I have needs, I have not provided.
In the first video, I showed you how to plant these cucumbers and these squash into circles. I also told you that I was planting several varieties, and the reason why is because I've been having some trouble with squash and cucumbers, and I want to find which variety is most resistant to the diseases and other challenges that I have here where I live, which is Central Florida. Do you see the difference between that circle, this circle, and now that circle? I promise you, I planted the same amount of seeds in the same amount of space, but some of the seeds just don't come up, or maybe something ate them. I don't know, but that's why we plant more seeds than we actually need. I'm going to choose this circle of cucumbers to show you what I do after they've come up. Now, these leaves right here, the little round ones, those are called cotyledons. They're actually part of the seed itself. These leaves are the first true leaves. Now you see, I've got some curling going on here, so I need to take a look at that and see what's going on. Sometimes seeds just have a hard time coming up out of the ground, and the leaves react that way. So it may be nothing, but it could also be things that we have no control over, such as it's been hot here and now it's chilly, and then it'll be hot again tomorrow. So sometimes the plants react like that, and there's really nothing we can do about that. So come on in closer. I'm going to show you what I want to do with all these seedlings. It's really good that all of these sprouted. We're going to choose the best ones. So here's a little one that just really struggled coming out. Here's another small one. Now I have my scissors here in case they're really down in there. I don't want to disturb the next plant. Here's another one. Pull them out gently so you don't disturb the plant that's next to it. Here's one that I'm going to pull. Which one of these do I want? I want this one. Pull a weed while I'm at it. Here's 2 that are too close together. Here's a third one. I'll pull that one. And I'll pull this one. Oh, you see how that is so close here? And when I pull it, it pulls the dirt that this is rooted in. So I'm going to cut it off. I think the rest are spaced far enough apart that they'll be okay. You see, in this variety of squash, we had quite a success rate with them sprouting and growing. So I'm going to come in here and get rid of some of this. I don't want that tomato growing up in the middle. I think I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this tomato. I don't need it. So I'm going to just cut it off. And that helps me look in here and see which ones are the better plants to choose. I'm going to cut this one off. The squash plants are going to be quite a bit bigger than the cucumbers, so I don't want a lot of them growing up in the same spot. I'm going to choose 4. So at this stage, well, I'm going to choose 5. I changed my mind. I'm going to choose this one, this one, this one, the middle one. So I have 5, and I may come back and thin them out even further as I watch them grow and see which ones I want to keep. So I'm going to go ahead and stir up the soil just a little bit before we do the next part of caring for these new squash plants. I promised you that I would talk to you about why I planted them in circles instead of a line. And I promised you that I would tell you why they're called hills when they don't look like hills. You see, these are already in hills. In a traditional garden, the land would be flat and you would make a hill. So if your land is flat, make a hill so that they are elevated above the level of the garden. That's why we call them hills. I already have hills just by the nature of the way my beds are. So here's the reason why I plant in circles. When I first started gardening about 28 years ago, this is how we planted squash and cucumbers. We planted them in circles. I don't recall seeing that you could plant them in a line and then you would train the cucumbers up on trellis or string or whatever you have available so that they could grow vertically. Now that does work for many gardeners across the world probably, but I switched from growing this way to growing vertically, and it never worked for me. I remember when I planted this way, I would walk through the garden with a friend and we would find so many cucumbers on the ground, the vines would be growing on the ground. We couldn't eat them all, there were so many. But then when I switched to vertical gardening, it just didn't work that well for me. And I think the reason for that is the same reason why I do my tomatoes different. It's the sunshine here in Florida. It is so intense during the months when the cucumbers are becoming ripe that it is just, I don't know, I guess the time for disease to set in. I don't really understand it, but this is what works for me, and I think this is going to work better than it has in the past few years that I kept trying and trying and trying the vertical growing. So I'm going back to what I did a long time ago that worked. And that brings us to the next thing that we're going to do for these plants, and that is we're going to get them protected with more leaves so that as they vine out, they're going to grow on top of the leaves, not on top of the dirt. You know, there's no guarantee that I'm going to have a ton of cucumbers this year, but I'm going to do everything I can to try to make it happen. So join me through the seasons. I'm going to talk to you about what to do in your garden as time progresses. And today the focus was cucumbers and squash, but I have lots of other veggies for you to see. Let me show you a close-up of what the leaves look like in and around the plants. I actually think that's very pretty. Now what you want to do is try to make sure that the leaves are out above the level of the leaves. In other words, the leaves of the cucumbers are above the oak leaves or whatever mulch that you are using. That way they're going to get plenty of sunshine, and as they start to make a vine, they're going to grow out over the oak leaves. Eventually my whole garden will be covered with oak leaves. You may have heard me refer to my garden journal. I refer to mine all the time. Mine is about 10 years old now, and it really is a help. I've made one for you to print out, or if you want to do an electronic version like I have, both versions are found in my Etsy shop. Thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful.
Great